Hello, so welcome to another book review by me, Callum Hems, and today we're talking about Down and Out in Paris and London by George Orwell. Should you read it? Abso-fucking-lutely. Should you read it? Yes. What a book. What a book. You're going to find out about his experiences in, I believe it's 1930s London, where he, and Paris of course, and the first half of the book he's, I'm not sure how to pronounce this, plongeur in French, plongeur, which is like the worker at the very bottom of the hierarchy in a restaurant who basically cooks and cleans for the restaurant workers themselves, and all the waiters basically treat him like shit because he's at the bottom of the hierarchy there. It was very interesting to find out about that, and the reason it's interesting is because it's fantastically well written. George Orwell makes it interesting by the fact that he's passionate, and you could see that in his writing, that he is very interested in what he's writing about, and that comes across. And so, not only do you read about the life of a plongeur, but it's portrayed in a very, very interesting and readable way. It's fantastic. And then he goes on to talk about his life in London, which is the kind of like second, maybe 30 or 40% of the book. As a tramp going around I believe he calls them what does he call them? Spikes, which are the casual wards or the accommodation houses for the homeless, where you can only stay once a night, and then you have to move on and move around. And some very interesting characters come up there. Some very interesting characters come up throughout the book. I love the way that actually, as a narrator, he doesn't really let himself get involved in what's going on. We get no general comments about himself or his backstory, or no arrogance from his behalf. He never generalizes about himself. He never labels himself. Unlike in a book like Hunger from New Hampton, where the character is like, I'm an honest man, So he's never bragging really about himself. He's just observing the characters and the places that go on about him. Then there's this kind of like exceptional kindness that comes from his point of view, where by the end of the book he's really analysing what's going on and how can this be made better. So it's a bit like having two essays, one essay about the plongeur life in Paris and one essay about the tramp life in London, and then at the end of this at the end of these stories there's kind of his comments about how this life could be made better. Do we really need the plongeurs? What's their purpose? What's their cause? And then at the end of the story about London, it's how can we make the life of a tramp better? Is this the way that it should be? We have this stigma about tramps. We have this stereotypical, tramps are just dangerous, evil drunks, or people not to be respected. Why do we have those stereotypes? Why are they reinforced in our collective consciousness? How can we, is there something we can do to change society's view of the tramp and make their lives better? And he does give ideas and suggestions at the end of the book, but I'm going to leave you to find out what they are and not go into that. But it's one of those books. It will definitely make you think. It will definitely shift your perspective on how you think about the homeless people. As George Orwell himself said, he doesn't think he went deep into poverty, but he went. At present, I do not feel that I have seen more than the fringe of poverty, which is a great line, because it made me think, actually, there's not a lot of things that I've actually seen for real. Most of the time you're just seeing the surface layer of something. You've never actually dived in deep to understand what it is actually like. You just kind of observing. There's another line in the book that he says that he and his tramp friend Paddy were sitting on the grass somewhere, on the verge somewhere, and some girl and her father were walking along the street, or they came out of their house or something, and they stood there and they looked at them and just watched them for, I don't know, some length of time. He said they watched us like aquarium fishes. This is a really nice simile, I thought. They watched them like aquarium fishes. Cool image. And I think that's what most people do with homeless people or tramps. So this book kind of shines a light on actually some opinions that are involved in being homeless, what it's like, even though it's from, you know, almost 100 years ago. I think it's pretty much largely still true, because not much time. We have the illusion of change, but I think in general, as a human race, we're still really living in with the same issues and the same problems as 100 years ago. And this book pretty much shows that, because I don't think that poverty would be much different anyway. You know, we still have homeless people. We still have the same, you know, the YMCA. I know nothing about it myself, as this book has shined more light on it, but it would be interesting actually to understand if it is the same, if anything has changed over the time that this book was published and now. I'd probably beg to say that it hasn't, but maybe I'm wrong. I don't know anything about homeless people today, so like, yeah, I am blind and unknowledgeable to that. But that's why, you know, you should read it. Definitely, if you're interested in poverty and human compassion and kindness, it is one of the books to read. And another thing, right? So George Orwell, this was kind of annoyed me, because the book felt that he was from kind of a middle class background, but because I think he was educated in private school, I don't know. But then he kind of goes into the world of poverty and experiences it and explores it. It feels to me like he can kind of come out of that world if he wants to, thanks to his education, which was like, it's, you know, cool that he decided, I'm going to go into the world and I'm going to see what it's like. But there's people that he describes that are in the world that don't have a choice whether to be there or not, because they're not educated. And I'm sure George Orwell obviously was educated, and then he went into the world of poverty. I feel like, obviously, he wrote about it because he was educated enough and intelligent enough to be a writer. But there's people in that world who wouldn't be able to do that, and they would be generally stuck in that world. So even though he was in that world and he wrote about it, you feel like when I was reading this in the book, I felt like he was in the world, but still separated from it. Which was the feeling, like a little bit like, yeah, but George, you're not really part of the world. You're kind of just being a journalist with inside it. But still, I mean, you can't knock that. That's great, because we get the viewpoint and all of the opinions about what that world is like, which is eye-opening. So here are some lines that I really loved. I loved the way his writing style, that he describes places with colours. Like, his face went purple with such infamy. Or the town was black with people and cars. Yvonne turned to the colour of a beetroot and looked ready to burst into tears. So he uses colours a lot to describe things, and it's really cool. One thing that no, I won't tell you that. It's read it and find out. But there's one thing that I laughed my head off. I actually laughed out loud in this book at one point. I was like, "That's hilarious." So probably you're going to get the same. So he's got, not all the time it's funny, but a lot of the time the way that it's written and just the way that it's written and the way that certain characters are described, it's done in a very kind of humorous manner, which is very entertaining to read. Then another line about the metro, jammed in the swaying mass of passengers. Just thought that was nice. They had to wake up early to get on the metro, and then he fought for a place, and then there's a hyphen. One does literally have to fight on the Paris metro at 6 a.m. Just like, it's just saying, actually, I'm not exaggerating here. You literally have to fight. Then another man who got drunk, and the hostess of the bar hoisted him like a sack and carried him up to bed. So just very interesting descriptions that I loved. And then I'm going to finish on this quote. Why are homeless people kind of hated and considered as like why are they disrespected so much? Because it's the way of society. Get money, get it illegally. Get money, get it legally, get a lot of it. Money has become the grand test of virtue. By this test beggars fail, and for this they are despised. He has merely made the mistake of choosing a trade at which it is impossible to grow rich. Just food for thought. And the way that Orwell has twisted that, put a different frame on it, and shown everything in a new light, makes you think differently about what it's like to be homeless. And also the view of society that, yes, society does have that attitude. Get money, get it legally, get a lot of it. That is the mantra. That is the mantra of modern day society, and therefore everything is organised around that hierarchy. And actually, Orwell was saying that it's hard work to be a tramp. You have to go around and begging, and knowledge of where you can stay and learn all of that. So he said that, well, that's a job, it's a trade, but it's just a trade at which it is impossible to grow rich. And what a interesting way to look at it. So yeah, you will have a different perspective after reading this book, and I think it will be a good one. So I strongly recommend that you read this book. It shines a light on poverty and homelessness, and it is incredibly well written, fun and enjoyable. Very easy book to read, very readable, and a lot of great eye-opening insights and ideas and new ways of looking at things. So that's a 10 out of 10 for me. An absolute beauty of a book. See you later.